So there are 4 main steps in establishing a data classification policy. The first one is you need to look at the user interface, so that's the classification options. The selectors users are going to choose from, any sub-selectors, for example PCI, PII, so that's personally identifiable information. Following on from that, it's considering the visual markings. So the visual markings are the things that your users apply to your information that really tells the rest of the world how important this data is to your organisation. So making sure that you understand what visual marking you have, where it's going to be placed, that's key to a classification policy. Thirdly, it's taking it one step further, so looking at the metadata that you're going to apply to these files. So you can apply metadata to trigger things like DLP, so data leakage prevention, archiving, governance, right management tools, cloud access security brokers. And then finally, it's understanding the process to agree in that classification. So whether that's through a committee, through an information security group, whether that's the CISO, you need to understand how it is that you're going to agree that classification policy, and then you can go on to implement it. You should know a few things about your technical environment before you start deployment. So the first one is the prerequisites. So do you have the necessary software prerequisites in place before you enable classification to your users? Secondly, it's your line of business apps, so applications that create data, create documents and files. You need to have either a way to classify those files or at least a plan for classification. Thirdly, things like Excel macros, VBA scripts. This is where users are generating lots of data, so they're pressing a button in Excel and it's creating documents and files. How is your classification project, or how's your classification process going to deal with those types of documents as well? And then finally, it's the technical rollout, the deployment. So can you do a phased deployment of classification? Can you enable classification to all users, or can you enable it business by business and user by user? User awareness is key, so cheat sheets, videos, recorded animations, taking over the desktop background, really trying to guide the users into selecting the right level of classification. Finally, getting some champions, some of those users that are important in the business, that understand classification, understand the processes, understand the data they're working with, who can then go on to really educate the other users and make sure they're classifying correctly as well. So change management processes and lead times specifically are important in any project to make sure that the project runs on time or is successful in the timeline it should be. So understanding the process to make changes, and that's technically, so understanding the processes to deploy software, but then also from a classification point of view, understanding the changes to classification policy, adding, removing or changing any of those values.